This is your math gal, Julie Harland. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where all of my videos are organized by topic. This is part 12 of graphing cosine functions, and on this video we're going to graph y equals the cosine of x over 2 plus 3. Alright, so first of all, notice there's no coefficient in front of the cosine, so the amplitude will just be 0. Let's just write down the domain. That's always the easy one. Domain is always all real numbers, so negative infinity to infinity. And the amplitude is going to be 1. This plus over 3 over here, that's the vertical shift, right? So we see we're going to have a vertical shift of up 3 units. Now, in the parentheses here, in other words, the argument, when I'm taking the cosine of, there's no plus or minus sign in there, so there's not going to be a phase shift. But you may not realize it, but this is a coefficient of x. When you see x over 2, that could be thought of as a coefficient of 1/2. So note that x over 2 is the same thing as 1/2 x. So I have a coefficient of 1/2 for x, and that's what my b value is, which I need to know in order to determine the period. So how are we going to get the period? You do 2 pi divided by p, because 2 pi is the regular period for just the cosine of x. So we do 2 pi divided by b. So I'm going to write it out that way, divided by 1/2. Now I know some of you know automatically that means multiply by 2. That's awesome. 2 pi times 2 means we're going to have a period of 4 pi. Now when we're going to make our chart up, we need to go 1/4 of the way from our first x coordinate. So 1/4 of 4 pi is going to be pi. Now the period is 4 pi. I'm just saying what is 1/4 of 4 pi? It's going to be pi. So we know once we start with our first x coordinate, we're going to add pi to get the next key x coordinate, and then add pi again, etc. Alright, the other thing I don't have here is the range, but we'll come back to that. You might be able to figure it out, but it's actually easier once you look at the graph. So how are we going to get our key x coordinates? Let's do that next. Alright, over here on the right upper part we have the key coordinates for y equals cosine of x. And remember those. And we start with 0, right? We go to 2 pi if we have a period of 2 pi. But now we've got a period of 4 pi. So we'll start at 0 because there is no phase shift, right? So we get to start at 0. But I have to add 1/4 of the period, which we determined was just pi. 1/4 of 4 pi is pi. So we add pi to get the next key x coordinate. Then we add pi again. We're at 2 pi. Add pi again. We're at 3 pi. And at 4 pi. So we've got our 5 key x coordinates. And so now that means for the cosine of x over 2, if we use these values of x, we'll get these values over on the right, the 1, 0, negative 1, 0, but then I got to add 3. So I'm going to put those in. 1, 0, negative 1, 0. In other words, convince yourself this is true by putting in any of these values. For instance, if you put in, oops, I wrote 0 at the end, there's a 1. If you put in pi for x, you'd be computing the cosine of pi over 2, which is 90 degrees, right? So the cosine of pi over 2 is 0, so there's that 0. But we have plus 3. So our actual coordinates then are 4, 3, 2, 3, and 4. So now it's easy to see the range. The range goes from 2 to 4. Okay, so let's write this down again. We had the domain was negative infinity to infinity, and now hopefully you see the range is going to go between 2 and 4. The amplitude will be 1 because the coefficient of cosine is just 1. And I think that's it, right? We don't have, oh no, we have a vertical shift. The vertical shift, up 3 units. And there was no phase shift. So we're ready to graph. So let's see, on my x-axis, I'm going between 0 and 4 pi. On the y-axis, between 2 and 4. So let's shift things mainly. I think I'll do this with a black. We know on the y-axis we have to go up at least 4 units. Now on the y-axis we've just got the 0 pi, 2 pi, so that's going to be easy. How about 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll call that 5 pi, right? So you could tell that's pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, and let's go for it. So the first order pair is 0, 4. Then we have pi 3, so 1 pi 3, 2 pi 2, 3 pi 3, and 4 pi 4. Of course, it's going to keep repeating, so if you want, you can do some more order pairs to get a better picture. And you definitely be very careful that you don't draw sharp edges. This is curved. Okay, so you really have to practice making it look nice and curved, curvy. And so I've got more than one period of pi here, right? Get the idea. And there we have the graph of y equals cosine x over 2 plus 3. This is your math gal, Julie Harland. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where all of my videos are organized by topic.